Faith and science. For a lot of people, they're like two boxes in opposite corners, ready to fight it out for the title of the truth. But what if that's the wrong way to look at it? What if an ancient book, written over thousands of years by dozens of authors, contains descriptions of the world that sound eerily similar to modern physics, biology, and cosmology? We're not talking about a conflict tonight. We're exploring an entirely different possibility, investigating verses that, when you read them through a 21st century lens, sound a whole lot like scientific principles we didn't discover until recently. Are these just wild coincidences, poetic license, or could it be a hint that the author of the book is also the author of the universe? We're going to look at the science we know, present the ancient scripture, get the historical context, and explore the connection. What you do with that information, well, that's up to you. Let's start big, really big. Our planet. We've all seen the breathtaking photos from space. Earth, a beautiful blue marble, just floating in the endless black. We know it's held in orbit by an invisible force called gravity, suspended in the vacuum of space. It's a concept so fundamental, we teach it to our kids. But let's rewind the clock about 3,000 or 4,000 years to the time of a man named Job. This was an age of myth and superstition. The Egyptians believed the sky was a goddess arched over the earth. The Mesopotamians thought the world was a flat disk inside a solid dome. Later, the Greeks would imagine the world held up by the Titan Atlas. The common thread was that the earth had to be resting on something solid. And it's in that context that we find a truly startling verse. In the book of Job, chapter 26, verse 7, it says, "He stretches out the north over empty space. He hangs the earth on nothing." Let that sink in. He hangs the earth on nothing. At a time when major cultures were picturing the world propped up on pillars or people, the book of Job offers a description that is radically different. It paints a picture of a world suspended in a void. Now, let's be fair. The book of Job is a masterpiece of Hebrew poetry, not a physics textbook. Just a few verses later, it uses other ancient imagery, talking about the pillars of heaven trembling. So we have to be careful not to just cherry-pick verses that fit our modern views. But the question remains, while other cultures described physical supports, how did the author of Job land on the stunningly modern image of an earth hanging on nothing? That phrase stands out, an uncanny echo of our own view of the solar system. Is it a lucky poetic guess or an insight that goes beyond the science of its day? The parallel is, at the very least, remarkable. From the vastness of space, let's zoom into something vital for life. The water cycle. Every school kid learns it. Water evaporates from oceans and lakes, rises up, forms clouds, and then falls back to earth as rain, flowing in rivers back to the sea to start all over again. A closed, continuous system. But a complete scientific model of this cycle is surprisingly recent, pieced together in the 16th and 17th centuries. Before that, while thinkers like Aristotle in ancient Greece had figured out parts of the puzzle, like evaporation and rain, the full picture remained a mystery. Why didn't the seas overflow from all those rivers? Now, let's travel back about 3,000 years to the writings of King Solomon. In Ecclesiastes, chapter 1, verse 7, he writes, "All streams flow into the sea, yet the sea is never full. To the place the streams come from, there they return again." That is a beautifully simple and concise summary of the water cycle. It nails the two trickiest parts, the sea never getting full and the water returning to its source. The book of Job which is even older, adds another layer. In chapter 36 it says, "He draws up the drops of water, which distill as rain from the mist, which the clouds pour down and shower on mankind abundantly." Here we have a clear picture of evaporation, draws up the drops, and precipitation, distill as rain. Of course, these verses don't use technical jargon. They speak in the poetic language of their time. What's striking, though, is how they present a coherent, cyclical system, not as a myth to be figured out, but as a known mechanism of God's design. How did these ancient writers so elegantly capture the essence of our planet's intricate plumbing? It's another one of those questions that makes you think. Let's move from the world around us to the world within. Today, we know that blood is the river of life. It carries oxygen and nutrients to every cell, hauls away waste, and is command central for our immune system. The idea that life is in the blood is a scientific fact. For centuries, though, that wasn't the case. Until the 19th century, medicine was dominated by the theory of the four humours. Sickness was thought to be an imbalance of fluids, and a common treatment was bloodletting. Many historians believe this practice, meant to cure, likely hastened the death of countless people, including America's first president, George Washington. Now, rewind over 3,500 years to the book of Leviticus. In the middle of a list of laws for ancient Israel, we find this direct statement in chapter 17, verse 11. "For the life of a creature is in the blood." The primary context here is theological. It explains why blood was central to their sacrificial system. But the premise for that theology is a profound biological truth. Life is in the blood. While it's speculative to say this verse alone could have changed medical history, it's a stunningly accurate statement sitting in an ancient legal text. But it doesn't stop there. The laws in Leviticus and Deuteronomy also lay out some of the ancient world's most detailed instructions for hygiene and sanitation. Deuteronomy 23 tells soldiers to designate a place outside the camp for human waste and to carry a tool to bury it. This simple rule would have been incredibly effective at stopping the spread of diseases that crippled ancient armies. Leviticus also describes what is essentially a system of quarantine for infectious skin diseases. A priest was to identify a sick person, isolate them for 7 days, and then re-examine them. Their clothes and even their house could be cleansed or destroyed. Now, to be clear, the goal was ritual purity, not a modern understanding of germ theory. And other ancient cultures, like those in Mesopotamia, also practiced forms of isolation.
This book is your beginner's guide to understanding Scripture. Find peace, build relationships, and discover purpose in today's world. Ready to decode the Bible? Find Bible Decoded available on Amazon now.
Still, the practical effect is undeniable. By identifying the sick, isolating them, and dealing with contaminated objects, these laws created a system that aligns perfectly with modern public health principles for controlling communicable diseases. In a world with no microscopes, these principles feel astoundingly ahead of their time. Let's look up at the heavens again. One of the biggest bombshells of 20th century science was the discovery that the universe is not static. In 1929, Edwin Hubble showed that distant galaxies are all flying away from us. The very fabric of space is expanding. This completely overturned the prevailing scientific view that the cosmos was eternal and unchanging. Now, let's open the book of Isaiah, written over 2,700 years ago. Describing the majesty of God, It says in chapter 40, verse 22, that God is the one who stretches out the heavens like a curtain and spreads them out like a tent to dwell in. This same idea appears more than 10 times in the Old Testament, in books like Job, Psalms, and Jeremiah. So let's be intellectually honest. Scholars will correctly point out that this tent or canopy imagery was common poetic language in the ancient Near East to describe the sky. This is not a scientific treatise on the metric expansion of space-time. Reading it that way would be forcing modern science onto an ancient text. But what's fascinating is the verb the Bible consistently chooses. It could have said, God set the heavens in place like a fixed dome, a common view at the time. Instead, it repeatedly uses a dynamic, active, and continuous verb, stretching. It implies a process, not a single, finished event. While this isn't science, it's a poetic choice that paints a picture of a dynamic cosmos, not a static one. The parallel between the ancient stretching of the heavens and our modern discovery of an expanding universe is a poetic resonance that's hard to ignore. Our last point touches on the very fabric of reality. Modern physics has taught us that matter and energy are two sides of the same coin. More than that, modern cosmology suggests that our entire universe, all the seen stuff, erupted from a single point of unimaginable energy. The universe of the seen appears to have been born from a state that was unseen. This is a mind-bending concept at the peak of scientific thought. Now let's turn to the book of Hebrews, written in the 1st century. The author is making a theological point about faith, and in the process says something stunning about the universe. Hebrews 11 verse 3 reads, "By faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible." This is an extraordinary claim. The verse is, without question, theological. It's about the power of God, not a lesson in quantum physics. And modern cosmology doesn't speak of creation from nothing in the same way theology does. But the philosophical principle here is profound. At a time when much of Greek philosophy held that matter was eternal, the Bible asserts that the entire visible physical cosmos came from a source that is, by its nature, invisible. It claims that the ultimate reality isn't the material world we can touch, but its unseen source. How could a 1st century writer articulate a principle about the origin of the universe that resonates in such a surprising way with our most advanced scientific ideas? So what do we do with all this? We have an ancient text that talks about an earth hanging on nothing. We've read a surprisingly slick description of the water cycle. We've found public health principles that were way ahead of the curve, imagery of a dynamic, stretching universe, and a statement that the visible world was made from the invisible. Are these all just lucky guesses? Poetic coincidences? Are we just reading our own modern bias back into these ancient texts? That's certainly one way to look at it, and we have to respect the poetic and theological nature of these scriptures. But there's another perspective. What if these aren't predictions, but reflections? Reflections of reality from an author who stands outside of time. From this viewpoint, it's not that the Bible was trying to be a science book. It's that science is uncovering the details of a reality that was described in foundational truths thousands of years ago. The bigger question is this: if the Bible demonstrates these kinds of intriguing insights about the physical, observable world, does that lend credibility to what it says about the spiritual, unseen world? If its descriptions of cosmology and biology have this uncanny ring of truth, Maybe its claims about morality, purpose, and God Himself are worth our serious consideration. What's your take? Are these just fascinating parallels or evidence of something more? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your perspective. And if you found this exploration compelling, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what's next. Thanks for watching.
Feeling anxious or disconnected? Ready for a deeper faith journey designed just for you? Discover Bible Study for Black Women. This guide nurtures faith, strength, and growth week by week. Overcome fear and connect with God. This empowering journey is waiting. Find Bible Study for Black Women on Amazon today and start building unshakable faith.
If this content blesses you and you'd like to support our mission, you can buy me a coffee or give a super thanks. Every contribution helps us create more content to inspire and uplift others. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on my future videos.
Templar.